Warhammer 3 is nearly here, so here's 10 things that have changed in Total War Warhammer campaigns. And while some of these things you may have seen in CA blogs or videos, I reckon there's at least a couple of things you definitely haven't heard of yet. Number 1 is Quick Deal is now a thing. This is a system over from Three Kingdoms. You'll now have a button at the bottom that says Quick Deal. When you click this, it'll show you all the factions that may be willing to do certain kinds of dealings with you. So here you can see I've got a deal chance in the green, so that means I could get that deal, a non-aggression pact, with the Burning Winds Nomads. So if I go ahead and do this, you can see it tells me that I am going to get it. There's no doubt about it, so it's an easy way to get these offers and to find out who you can deal with quick. There's also the same thing for trade agreements, military access, defensive alliances, military alliances, and confederation. So this is just a really handy way to see where you stand with all the different factions around you, which can help you try to find those deals that you wouldn't think to maybe get, like this non-aggression pact with the Sons of the Mountain. I can't quite get it, but I am close, so just a little bit of money, if I throw that at them, that should put them in the green. There we go, 1.6 now. So now I've got a non-aggression pact with some nearby ogres that should keep them off my back. So a nice way to help control diplomacy a little bit more with Quick Deal. Number 2, it's all about the ambushes. So you know how in an ambush the attacked army gets surrounded and is ultimately doomed? Well, now there's a glimmer of hope with the escape zone at the end of the ambush zone. So if you're the ambushed party, if you can manage to get your units to this zone, you will be able to withdraw them with any luck before they take any damage. As the attacker, this means you need to kind of think ahead and maybe try to stop them getting to that zone so you can do the maximum amount of damage on the ambush. So it adds a nice new layer to ambush battles, where you can toss up, if you're the ambushed one, do I sacrifice some units to try and save the rest of my army, or do I try and fight them off? Do I try to get everybody out? And for the attacker, you now want to think, okay, how do I stop them getting away, and maybe trying to block them from getting to that escape zone. So it's another system over from Three Kingdoms. It's a nice one. I think it adds a bit of depth to the ambush battles. Number 3. Are you tired of factions that you're not at war with trespassing and maybe even raiding you as well? Well, now there's a button to threaten trespassers, which tells them to get lost within 2 turns or you're going to break their nose, or words to that effect. Send a warning to the trespassing faction to leave your territory at once. If they fail to leave in 2 rounds or turns, you can declare war on them without suffering the treachery penalties of breaking non-aggression pacts and trade agreements. So a nice addition, good for getting rid of those little beastmen type armies that just sit around raiding you for no apparent reason. Now we can scare them off. New thing number 4, we're building on the war coordination here, so when you have an alliance with another faction, like I have here with Greyling, we will have some new options. The first change to this system is that there is now a currency that you'll have to use to get your allies to do things. So you see up the top here, allegiance, I have 90 points in this. I can use this to ask my allies to do things for me. These allegiance points can be earned through various missions, but they will accrue over time the longer you have a relationship with other factions. So what can these points be used for? Well, the same as in Warhammer 2, first of all, we can select a mutual enemy of me and my allies' faction and tell them to go and attack that army or settlement, just like in Warhammer 2 already. But now we can also ask our allies to defend our settlements. So if we're away from our lands, off doing something else, and we've got a nearby ally that doesn't seem to be up to much, well, you could go and ask them to put one of their armies near one of your settlements to help keep them safe. We can also request army, which means we can literally just ask our allies, hey, can I borrow your army for a bit? And they will say yes if you've got enough allegiance points, and you will then take control of their army. Pretty handy in certain situations, I'm sure. Number 5, kind of tying into that last point, but it seemed like it deserved its own slot. But this is another part of military allegiance. It's building outposts at ally cities. Now what the hell does an outpost do for me, I hear you cry? Well, it will allow you to recruit units from that faction. So playing as the Demons of Chaos here, with my allied recruitment, I can get Norscan units, Skinwolves, Berserkers, into my army. I wouldn't have access to these units normally, but with the allegiance and the outpost, I do. So whichever faction you're playing as and whichever factions you ally with, you will be able to recruit their units with outposts. You want your vampire counts to have Jezzails? Well, now maybe you can. Pretty powerful stuff for mixing around factions. On to number 6, this one relating to battles, with a pretty big change to how reinforcements work. Because no longer will reinforcing armies arrive right at the start of the battle. They will now have to wait for a timer of usually 1 to 2 minutes, And as this tooltip mentions, it's related to the Lord's levels. Your Lord compared to the enemy Lord, and the difference between those levels will determine the time and position of where the army and reinforcements come in. So another really nice change, I think, just again adds a little bit more depth to this area of battles and reinforcements. You do need to be a bit more careful if you have a smaller starting army to the enemy, because they may rush you and take out your small army before your reinforcements arrive. So you do have to plan a little bit more. Can also potentially help you win battles where you are the outnumbered one and the enemy's got reinforcements. If they're coming in waves, you have a bit more chance of taking them both out if you play well. On to number 7. This is a pretty big one that I think a lot of people have been waiting for a long time. It was in 3 Kingdoms and even some older Total Wars, I think. Being able to trade settlements. A really nice feature that just helps you clean up your regions a little bit, as very often you'll want to try and get full provinces rather than broken ones. So for example, I've got Wengchang here and Terracotta Graveyard, these two, but I'd like to get the full province and try to get Po Mai as well. So if I had the money or maybe the regions to trade to this faction, I could ask them to give me Po Mai. In this case, they won't, because it's their only settlement. They've only got a couple of gates otherwise, so they wouldn't actually have any proper settlements if they gave me this. So they're not going to, but if they had more lands, I could probably get it off them if I had enough money or if I had another region to trade them. Or alternatively, I could offer to give them the 2 settlements that I have in exchange for money or maybe a trade agreement or maybe asking them to attack another faction. We can now use land and settlements as a bargaining tool, basically. Very nice to have this feature now in Total War Warhammer. Number 8 is a pretty unique one, especially good for the Demons of Chaos and their customizable Lord, because if you've got a Lord that you really love, perhaps you've got them some neat items and traits, well now you will be able to save them to custom battles, so you will be able to use them outside of campaign, in custom battles, in custom multiplayer, if character loading is enabled. I would show you it, but I'm not allowed to show you that side of the game yet, so you'll just have to take my word for it, but it's a cool feature. I can feel some demon fashion shows coming on stream. But this does apply to all lords, so if you make a cool Costaltin or a cool Scarbrand or a cool Zhao Ming, maybe you found some powerful items or acquired some powerful traits, you'll be able to transfer them out to custom battles where you can mess around with them with some buddies in multiplayer if you've got any friends. So yeah, a cool extra feature. On to number 9. Are you tired of allocating skill points to characters maybe you don't care too much about? Well, now there is an auto-assign skill points button. Check this box and skill points will be automatically assigned for you, saving you a job at the end of every turn. So it's a really nice time saver. You can turn it on whenever you want. And as an example, this Miao Ying has been almost entirely auto skill point leveled up. I think I put 1 point in Earthblood and 1 point in Fervent, but the rest has been all done by the AI, and it's made pretty good selections. It's taken Sure Aim, which increases my missile power, and I've got a whole bunch of missile units in my army you can slightly see down here, so it's a good pick. She's also taken Missile Mirror and Life Bloom, Root Marcher, some really good choices. I've got 2 other characters over here that have both been completely auto-skilled up, and the AI's decisions look pretty good. They all seem to be mostly useful things that they've taken, so seems like a really handy feature when you get characters that are maybe quite high level and you don't really care where the skill points go anymore because you've got everything you want. Well, now you can just hit auto assign and the AI will do the rest for you, just saving you a job that can be a little bit tedious when you've got kind of 10 or 15 lords and heroes. So a really nice little extra feature. There's also an auto building construction button, which is slightly less exciting, but also nice to have. And number 10 is all to do with besieging and attrition, because the way attrition works has now been changed. At the moment, you see I just attacked this settlement, everything's in full health. And in Warhammer 2, I would have to wait for these turns over here, 10 turns, before the enemy army would take any attrition. But now in Warhammer 3, enemy armies will take attrition on every single turn, being completely depleted at the end of that 10 turns. So here after 1 turn, you can see these units are now a little bit depleted. They've all lost about 1/10 of their health, making it slightly easier for me to take that army out. But if we wait 1 more turn, they're going to lose a little bit more again, maybe another 1/10. So now you can see these units are starting to get pretty beaten up, and we can keep doing this as far as we want. And for the attacked army, you have to ask yourself the question, do I sally out and attack and try to do as much damage to that enemy army as possible, knowing that I'm not going to win, but at least I won't just get worn down with attrition? Or do you stay in there, take the attrition, and maybe wait for another army to come and help you? Because at least you'll still have your defensive position inside the settlement if you stay there. And of course, attackers have to be aware of this too. Could you fight and win, or should you encircle and maybe try to make it easier so your army doesn't take too much damage by wearing these units down? But do you have the time to do that? Because if you do, and then guess what? You end the turn, but the enemy gets saved by a reinforcement army, then you're going to have to fall back, and you've missed your opportunity to take that settlement. This might feel like a bit of a controversial change maybe, because it's a pretty big one, but I think it is for the better. And one last new feature, which is going to be pretty handy for new players or for people just trying to learn the game in general. When you win or lose a battle, at the end, you will be able to rematch and do it again if you want. So if you lost, but you figure that maybe there's a better way you could have done it, well, now you can just try it again and learn from your mistakes. And there we go. 10 new changes in Warhammer 3. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.